Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nexus. I am from the Wolves of Wall Street. I'm a moderator, and it is my pleasure to bring you Team Shapeshift. We have Erik, John, and Willie, all representing the finest that the world of decentralization has to offer. Many of these gentlemen have been working on this very project for a long time. It has taken several different forms, definitely earning its name Shapeshift, in my opinion. And I have a preface that I want to give everybody before we start the show for real. This preface is going to cover just a couple things that I want everybody to be aware of. Firstly, I'm going to give a little bit of my background in crypto just for context reasons. I have known about Bitcoin for about 10 or 11 years, but I didn't invest until 2020. When I loaned a friend $500 and came back on me with $1,000 in Bitcoin and said, "Here, play with this, see what you can do." That journey led me all the way here and to the lofty platform that I have been blessed by this beautiful community. I want to thank Sarge especially for putting this show together and doing much of the arranging required to get us all together here to talk. And this stream is going to contain some political conversations with a favorable bias towards decentralization. I myself have come to that position over time for many different reasons. I expect we will also discuss banking, money, how to store it, and manage it using decentralized systems, as well as how viable they are. I would encourage all listeners here live and on Twitch and YouTube later to, at all times, conduct their own research, as the opinions of everybody who's going to be talking on this stream today are the opinions of those speakers themselves, and they do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any larger groups, organizations, or the entirety of the Wolves of Wall Street. I want to thank everyone again for their time joining us, and to my guests, if any of the questions I ask sound like they're directed at anyone in particular, they're not really. This is a group conversation, and my questions are not necessarily restricted to any one person, because we're all here. We're all here to have a conversation, and I expect that we're all going to have a very good time. All right. So with that being said, let us begin. Gentlemen, Willie, Erik, John, is there anything that you guys would like to tell us about yourselves? Just basics, the hobbies, anything that got you into Bitcoin. Let us get to know you for a minute.
Sure, we can get that rolling. So, hi everyone, I'm John. I'm the current Chief Product Officer over at ShapeShift. In a few months, I will not have that title as ShapeShift continues fully decentralizing into a DAO through the end of this year. I've been working on ShapeShift and in crypto for last 7 or 8 years, and it's been quite the ride. I probably used to have hobbies, but since crypto took over my life, I don't have many anymore.
I relate.
Yeah, glad to be here.
I relate. That's fantastic. Erik?
Right. Yeah, I'll go next. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right. Hello, everyone. I am Erik Voorhees, and I am a crypto addict. I've been involved in this crazy industry since 2011, when I learned about Bitcoin and fell down the rabbit hole because I was so excited that there was a true market-based form of money and something that no government in the world could stop. I found that to be profoundly interesting, and ever since then, Bitcoin cryptocurrency has been my passion, my hobby, and my career. I've been the CEO of ShapeShift since 2014 when I founded it with John. And like John, I will no longer be the CEO of ShapeShift by the end of this year because the entity is winding down and the project is becoming a DAO itself. So there won't be a chief executive of ShapeShift as a DAO. So my time right now is largely spent, kind of unwinding the corporate structure of ShapeShift and learning about how DAOs work and just being a participant in that new form. I have to say it's been really amazing to see it start develop. And a year ago, I didn't really understand how DAOs would work in most contexts, but I'm increasingly bullish on them as a new model for economic organization. And super glad to be here and happy to chat about anything related to crypto that you all would want.
Awesome.
Hey everybody, my name is Willie. I am currently Principal Product Manager at ShapeShift. I've been with ShapeShift for about 3.5 years now. And going forward, as ShapeShift dissolves, I will be the head of decentralization at the upcoming Fox Foundation, which is a not-for-profit foundation that's being established to help the DAO, help support the DAO in achieving its mission of fully decentralizing ShapeShift and transitioning all control to Fox token holders. And I'm really, really honored to be working on that. I cannot think of a more valuable mission in the world to dedicate my own personal energy to than ShapeShift's mission, which is to be the open source, multi-chain, community-owned, and decentralized interface to the decentralized universe. I think that's super valuable and something that needs to exist in the world. So I'm loving it. I've loved working at ShapeShift for 3.5 years. Love working with Erik and John. And these past 3 months since we've started transitioning to a DAO have been the best 3 months ever. So looking forward to many more to come.
Oh, that is so cool. Obviously, most of the folks here are going to be completely in agreement that the world needs a bit more decentralization, especially in the world of companies. And Fox token is a really cool governance token. Is there anything that anyone wants to tell us, kind of the basics about Fox?
Yeah, I'll start, and then Erik and John, please fill in anything I miss. So yeah, like you said, Nexus Fox is first and foremost a governance token. Fox, we actually launched Fox before launching the DAO, but only a very small amount of the total supply had been issued, and it had all been issued to ShapeShift users. So when we launched the DAO, those past ShapeShift users, along with 1 million additional former ShapeShift users and about 100,000 community members of other DAOs, were airdropped Fox tokens. And so that kind of marked a pretty big inflection point in Fox's utility. Fox became a governance token, and now Fox token holders control the ShapeShift DAO, which has 24% of the total token supply streaming to it over the next 3 years, and also has 35% of the supply, 32.5% of the supply in about a week, everything that was unclaimed from the airdrop. So over 50% of the Fox supply is going to be in a treasury that Fox token holders control. It's going to be in the top 10 DAO treasuries in terms of dollar value. And yeah, it's basically in Fox token holders' best interest to make proposals to the DAO to allocate those Fox tokens in ways that they think will increase the value of the treasury overall. So, these are things like, for example, the token holders could choose to add fees on top of these protocols that ShapeShift is integrating. But as a token holder myself, I'm actually more of a fan of not adding fees and instead of these affiliate revenue opportunities, which would basically give ShapeShift users the ability to use a lot of the top DeFi protocols that a lot of crypto users are already interested in using in a way that doesn't cost them any extra versus if they were to go directly to that protocol, but can generate revenue for the DAO. And so there's a growing list of these types of affiliate revenue partnerships available. One of the first that we're really excited about is Yearn. And I'll post a link to a diagram. I'll post a diagram in the chat to kind of show how this model can work.
Oh, yeah.
I love diagrams, right? It's a pretty one.
Yearn especially, though. Yeah, I know about Yearn. Yearn is very cool.
Yearn is awesome. And it's just one example of one of the growing number of protocols that are realizing that it's in their best interest to share a slice of the revenue that they generate on the protocol level with interfaces like ShapeShift that can drive volume and revenue. It's a win-win where we can drive more volume and revenue to the protocol, and we don't care how the protocol makes their pie. We just want a slice. And so ShapeShift can be, the best way to use a protocol like Yearn because it's going to be, again, an open source, beautiful interface that's community owned. There's no fees on top of it unless the community decides to change that. And so users will not be paying any extra using Yearn through ShapeShift, and they'll be generating revenue for the DAO and for any of these affiliate revenue partnerships. ShapeShift DAO can vote to incentivize usage of these protocols with Fox tokens. So we can actually make it the best way for a user to use Yearn and a growing number of protocols, and that can help build some really strong network effects.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. Erik and John, anything else to add? Because that's...
Yeah, I'll sort of go off that a little bit. For people that are more familiar with how centralized corporations work, you understand that when there's a centralized corporation, you have a bunch of shareholders. And if it's a startup, maybe that's only 5 or 10 people. A public company is going to be thousands or tens of thousands. And from those shareholders, you get a board of directors, and the board of directors ultimately elects the executive team, and the whole structure develops from that. In a DAO model, the power rests with the token holders. So in our case, it's the Fox token holders. Instead of there being shareholders that control where ShapeShift goes, which has been how we operated as a centralized entity for the last 7 years, Fox token holders will now govern how the ShapeShift DAO unfolds over time. And ultimately, all power and direction of the ShapeShift project comes down to the token holders. So in that way, they are similar to shareholders, but unlike shareholders, anyone from any part of the world can be involved at any time to any degree. And it's just a much more dynamic and fluid situation. And it was impossible to do that without blockchains and without tokens for various platforms. So this is what we are experimenting with. And I'll pass it over to John if he wants to add anything.
No, honestly, I think you and Willie covered the token pretty well. Happy to answer more specific questions about it as we get in. I'm seeing some good ones in the chat there, but yeah, I don't have much more to add on that. That's a great overview.
Well, as a follow-up, I would ask that it feels like most major crypto wallets, DEX projects have proprietary tokens like Fox, like AWC for Atomic Wallet, or like DiDEX's recently released token that will have staking and rewards associated with the token. What makes ShapeShift and Fox token better to invest in than a similar stake token project?
We're not going to comment on why Fox token would be good or bad to buy. I don't want to get into that. But in terms of what makes ShapeShift as a project or product different, we are open source now that we're moving into this DAO structure. And because ShapeShift isn't a corporation anymore, we are able to match a lot of the openness and borderlessness of a crypto project itself.
Excellent.
Whereas any centralized company is going to be bound to certain jurisdictions, certain territories, and that will always put them at odds with the crypto networks underneath them.
Excellent. Makes perfect sense to me, boss.
I can, while I'm in diagram, I'll share a screenshot just that we did recently of kind of like a competitive analysis comparing ShapeShift to some of the other projects that we see as kind of similar or close competitors. So I'll post that, and that'll show some of our unique differentiators.
Perfect. Yeah, that's all we need. Awesome. Okay, cool. Here's an interesting kind of thought experiment for you guys. It's really such an honor to be, I have to emphasize this, to be talking with a team that's been pushing decentralization as long as you guys have been doing it. So I see you guys as kind of like trench veterans, whereas I'm a bit of a newbie. And I often get asked to explain Bitcoin to new folks. How would you guys explain Bitcoin to somebody who'd say struggles to operate an iPhone?
This is a question I almost always got asked years ago, and like it's been so many years since that question got asked. Maybe I'm rusty now, but it's a good question, and there's still several billion people that don't understand this stuff yet. So I think it's important to keep that sharp. I would describe Bitcoin as a new form of money. So you can think of it like money as in, the dollar is a form of money, and gold used to be a form of money. Bitcoin is a new form of money, and it's a payment network. And so the Bitcoin payment network allows you to send Bitcoin money from one person to another person anywhere in the world. And there are no restrictions. No one can stop you. No one knows what money you have or where it is. and you are completely sovereign and the only person that controls it. And so if you compare that to dollars, banks will control what you want to do with your money. Banks can freeze your account, they can steal your assets, they can block for arbitrary reasons. And in Bitcoin, that is impossible. You can be completely sovereign over your own money. So for people that want to take control over their own lives and their own wealth, Bitcoin is a fundamental building block, and I would say one of the greatest technologies to ever exist.
I would agree, sir.
Yeah, awesome. When I get this question, been answering this in some form for, basically since I got into Bitcoin.
And we all still will.
Yeah, and it's never gonna. I guess it's not gonna stop. But kind of like Eric, it's interesting that that's not the question people ask as much anymore. But generally, my best answer to that has not been like a bunch of trying to explain what Bitcoin is or some theoretical examples, although those certainly come up. The best answer to explaining what Bitcoin is, in my opinion, is to generally just give someone some Bitcoin. Make them download a wallet, send them a little bit, make them send a transaction, and that has always done wonders for me in terms of explaining to them what it is compared to any amount of talking I can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think a good analogy there is like a bicycle, right? If you'd never been on a bicycle, and maybe never seen it, and you ask someone like, what is a bicycle? Like how long would it take to try to describe what that is to someone? And would they really understand it even if you gave them the best explanation ever? Their understanding would be very limited. But if you get on a bicycle or you see someone actually riding it, you understand far faster what the thing is. I think that holds very true in anything new and alien to someone, and Bitcoin definitely falls in that category.
Yeah, well said. And especially when we get to DeFi and stuff, there's no better way to understand impermanent loss than to experience it. Good luck trying to understand it by just reading a blog post.
True.
True. I think on that note too, yeah, I think a lot of people get caught up trying to understand how Bitcoin and blockchain works. And, I like to compare it to the internet and stuff and cell phones. It's like a lot of us, we really don't necessarily understand how it works, but we use it every day and we understand the why. So I think explaining to people why Bitcoin is valuable. And I think an easy way to describe it too is just a digitally native currency that no single person controls, but that anyone with internet access can use.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for that. That's perfect. I've got a question. This one was originally intended for Willy, but obviously anyone can chime up. Decentralization is taking the world by storm right now. The fact that your organization is shifting to a DAO structure is just one point of evidence for that. I personally am hoping to see government applications for blockchain that can result in positive decentralized changes to the way elections are run. And I wanted to ask if any of you guys could foresee future use cases for decentralized tokenomics that could benefit one or many nation states in general.
Yeah, John, I saw you unmuted. I'll start and I'll definitely pass it over to you. I'm sure you have some good thoughts on this. But yeah, I think, in fact, there was actually a podcast just yesterday, I think, with Andrew Yang on Bankless. And so he's, I think planning to run for 2024 and planning to try and make his run on a crypto, kind of the crypto party is the way he described it, crypto forward party. So yeah, I absolutely think so. I think DAOs are actually, it's very similar. It's like it's another form of democracy, right? And or even meritocracy. And it's silly to think that the way that governments were formed hundreds of years ago is still the best way to do it.
Amen.
We've had quite a few innovations since then. But yeah, I think DAOs show that we really can have more decentralization in governance and more efficient governance and more possibilities that would be very difficult or impossible to implement without tools available to us, such as blockchain. So I'm very bullish, and I would love to see a more DAOified government, and definitely have some ideas for what that could potentially look like. John?
Yeah, so I think this is happening in the short. What Willy just said some of that will happen in the short term. But my interest, I think that those changes in governance are actually happening today through DAOs. They're pretty nascent, but they're already starting to happen. We already kind of see this in the ShapeShift community. This kind of spontaneous global order just coming from Fox token holders and proposing things that are of value to the rest of the community. I'm kind of more of the opinion that DAOs over the medium to maybe long term, and maybe not even that long term, will actually start to make nation states obsolete. Meaning that, like, I don't think it's necessarily that they change the way, or that tokenized voting changes the way that governments work, although it might. I think more importantly, I think DAOs start to obsolete the need for nation states. When you can have global digital communities that can organize across all these invisible lines that people put up and coordinate on whatever they want that is interesting to them and not give that power over to a bunch of bureaucrats to do things with, I think that's when things would become really powerful, and I think they start to erode the power of nation states actually pretty quickly.
Wow. As the kids would say, that's pretty based, sir.
Yeah, I'll just add that the way you framed the question was like, how will blockchains
how can blockchain help nation states? But really,
yeah, and I cringed when I heard that, and I was like, I don't want them to help nation states. I want them to destroy nation states. I
wish you could see how much I'm grinning right now, sir.
Yeah, I mean, of course, blockchains could be used to make voting more transparent and honest, but I don't think the problem with modern politics is that the voting systems aren't efficient. I mean, they're kind of slow and analog, but the real problem is the incentive structure.
Correct.
Where people en masse will vote resources from one group to another, and you just get this horrible tragedy of the commons happening, over and over and over in all these different domains. So I don't really want to make any of that more efficient. I want it to go away and become less important.
Yes, absolutely. That's why I framed the question that way. I was hoping to bait out a great answer like that. Perfect, guys. Okay, so some centralized exchanges have recently been accused of profiting handsomely off of their user bases, trading through the way of user activity, representing inside signals within the company to buy, sell, etc. Does ShapeShift prevent this kind of activity? And if you do, can you explain how to the audience?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, I mean, whenever there is a trading venue, the operators of that venue have certain knowledge that the average trader on that venue does not have. This is true of all centralized exchanges in legacy finance and is true of centralized crypto exchanges as well. Two answers here. One is that ShapeShift is not an exchange anymore at all. From our founding in 2014 up through earlier in this year, ShapeShift was technically described as a market maker. We were trading with our customers, and having that knowledge, we could have made trades based on knowledge that others didn't have. Sometimes we did not, but since we are no longer an exchange, that's kind of a moot point. And more importantly, these decentralized exchanges make everything transparent. So on a decentralized exchange, no one has any secret knowledge of what's going on. Sometimes the knowledge might be quite difficult to understand if you're not technical, but there's no special gatekeepers. Anyone can read the blockchain, it's all transparent, and obviously everyone is just trying to compete with everyone else, and it's on a level playing field, and it's fair and open and transparent. So I think the real question isn't like, do some centralized exchanges front-run customers? The question is, there's other problems with centralized exchanges, and let's just leave that world behind and move to one where trading is open and transparent, and that is brought to us by DEX technology.
Absolutely.
I will add that, in DEXs, just like Erik said, there still is the potential for front running, but it's at least open to everybody. But on that note, we had a call just yesterday with Flashbots. We've also been talking with CowSwap, which is a new DEX launched by the Gnosis team. Both of those offer solutions to protect users from sandwich attacks that they are still subject to on the decentralized network. So also just looking into ways where we still can help protect users even in this decentralized world.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of the fact that you guys went DAO and started decentralizing your company. I think you guys are only going to benefit in the long term from doing that. But I recall that when that change happened, that you went decentralized, that occurred primarily Did that occur primarily as a result of the vitriol that you guys got exposed to vis-a-vis the know your customer requirements? Because a lot of Bitcoiners would have been opposed to any KYC.
Yeah, I'll take that. So, yeah, I mean, they're certainly related. Up until 2018, ShapeShift did not have user accounts and did not take any KYC information at all. And into 2018, when we had done a significant amount of legal review, we came to the conclusion that we were going to have to start KYCing and basically acting like a bank, like a traditional financial institution. So it wasn't just, Bitcoiners that didn't like that. None of us liked that. I mean, the whole company was dismayed about that. Our users were dismayed about it. Personally, I find it unethical to spy on people and to take their personal information when they don't want to give it and we don't want it or need it for any reason. So we were kind of stuck in that trap for a while because we couldn't just break laws. We are known figures.
Of course.
So what do we do? Fast forward a couple years and these DEXs had gotten so powerful, so much liquidity, so impressive, Uniswap being the great example here, that we realized, even before we decided to become a DAO ourselves, we realized that we should simply integrate these DEXs into ShapeShift's interface and stop being an exchange ourselves. And that happened in the first half of this year. First in January when we integrated ETH DEX trading for ETH and ERC20s, and then in April when we integrated Thorchain so that we could trade across other layer ones such as Bitcoin. And at that point in mid-April of this year, we stopped being an exchange, we stopped being a financial intermediary, and we were able to remove all KYC again because we were not providing a regulated service. So that's been our story, and obviously the customer base was thrilled with that decision, and it was a few months after that we announced, the full intention to go even further and become a completely decentralized organization.
Cool. Did any of you other guys want to add anything to that, or should I move on?
Yeah, I think Erik put it well, but I think there was a lot of reasons to move to the DAO. We certainly didn't do it just because of vitriol from the Bitcoin, especially Bitcoiners who never really liked ShapeShift in the first place because they didn't like anything other than Bitcoin.
Well, the maxis will be the maxis.
I don't know that they were ever our biggest fans to begin with. They were a little more tolerant in the very early days, but very quickly they didn't love us. The way I view it, I started viewing the move in our choice to decentralize as a almost necessary step. One, to live true to our ethos of decentralization and self-custody and all of that we've been preaching since we started ShapeShift, one of the whole reasons we did it. But also because I just saw how fast things were moving in these decentralized worlds, how fast these decentralized protocols and communities were building things, and getting these contributions from all over the world. And I started to realize that ShapeShift could never keep up that pace unless it was decentralized itself. You have so many bottlenecks in a centralized entity that start to become a problem in various bureaucracy forms and various processes. And even if you have a ton of capital and money, you can only hire so many people and focus them in so many directions before things start to fall apart. A decentralized community, and this is part of the experiment, but in my opinion, they can move much faster, cooperate and build on other decentralized protocols that are building things much faster, and just they ultimately are a better form of organization is what I started to believe. So to me, that was a much more of a motivation for why we went this way than a lot of those other things.
Makes perfect sense to me, especially because of the failure of governments to deal with so many of the problems that I'm seeing in all societies around the world. I'm from the United States, but I keep an eye on world politics as much as I can, and it's really disturbing to me how far Western society and China and Taiwan, everything is just feels like it's coming apart sometimes. I often get into arguments with folks in the real world about Bitcoiners being kind of anarcho-capitalists, which I don't like that rhetoric because it tends to paint people into Bitcoin as being like Michael Saylor, where we're all cultists, or we're wishing for some kind of Blade Runner-esque future where computers are running everything. I don't feel like that helps the conversation, and it's something I personally encounter frequently. Do you guys have any comment on the notion that Bitcoiners are seeking less regulation to create a world of anarcho-capitalist Blade Runner dystopia?
This one seems up your alley, Eric.
I love this question. First, I think it's important to avoid the trap of collectivism. Bitcoin is a really large community these days, and there are a lot of people with different opinions and viewpoints within the Bitcoin community. So, but I think there is truth to the question. Like a lot of Bitcoiners are certainly of the anarcho-capitalist mentality, myself included. But really, all that means is that we're advocates of markets and peace, which are kind of redundant terms. So, if it makes someone kind of like a crazy extremist to advocate open markets, then I'm a crazy extremist. And fortunately, I think Bitcoin and the whole crypto ecosystem has provided a way for markets to actually form without requiring a vote. Like, we don't need to convince the voting public, which has been dumbed down through many different means for decades. We don't need to convince them of anything. We can just build freely, openly, voluntarily in this cyberspace world of crypto assets. I think that's an incredible thing. And none of this stuff is forced on anyone else either. Anyone who doesn't like open markets, anyone who doesn't want money that is purely of technology and of individual participants in the marketplace, doesn't have to use it. They can stick with their dollars, and it doesn't need to have any problem with them. So I think it's a really beautiful way of creating the world that we want to see without begging permission and without forcing anyone else that doesn't want to be involved.
Yeah, the way I have to portray it is the same way. I use the terms free markets and fiscal responsibility a lot when I end up talking to these folks who are coming at me like, oh, you're trying to create the cyberpunk future no one wants. It's much more nuanced than that. Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, usually those scary cyberpunk futures are ones with like large, massive surveillance states, which is completely antithetical to the ethos of most Bitcoiners.
Yeah, and they feature a giant super corporation circa Wayland Yutani or Arasaka in the actual cyberpunk board game that represent a central corporate authority.
Yeah, very, very much the opposite of everything decentralized crypto.
All right. Excellent. Well, guys, that perfectly on time completes my questionnaire segment. I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves. This is great fun for me so far. Looks like we're getting ready to roll over to the community's questions now. Let's go take a look, see what everybody's been asking. All right. Okay, so the first question we got comes from Aurum. My man, Aurum. Right now, this looks swell, but I bet, like any project, you guys had ups and downs. Did you guys ever feel like ShapeShift wouldn't go anywhere? And how did you get the confidence or motivation to keep on working on the mission?
Go ahead, John, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, like any entrepreneur, I think we've had multiple times where that was the case, especially after we did have to implement KYC in 2018, and we basically lost the majority of our business at that point. At that time, it was pretty hard to see exactly how we were going to evolve ShapeShift and what way we were going to go and how we were going to really live through our mission and get through. So I mean, we went from the bull cycle of really going crazy when we first built ShapeShift in 2016 and 2017, and just experiencing this crazy exponential growth, and hiring a ton of people, and the company growing so big, and our volumes growing very large, very rapidly, much faster than I think ourselves or any investors expected. And then to shrink all of that down, especially as we went into the depths of the bear market in 2018, it was, we were having a hard time seeing through that. I think we were, especially Erik and myself, having already been in crypto long enough through those times, we always had a lot of confidence that, crypto itself would get itself out there, and it was just our mission to build something useful for the world, and that if we did that, we would eventually get there. But certainly there were some long nights. There were some various incidents and all sorts of things that make you question yourself as a builder and entrepreneur over time. But I think just having confidence in the vision of crypto itself, and having confidence in our ability to evolve and, for lack of a better term, keep shape-shifting into something that people would actually want to use, kept us going. But yeah, it's definitely never easy.
Yeah, I would not describe it meaning our experience, and it meaning entrepreneurship in general, as a long period of success and growth punctuated by challenges. I think it's more like constant challenge in 5 or 50 different directions, where you feel like everything's on fire and everything's broken and nothing's working, and you just keep moving forward through those flames day after day after day after day after day. And there, you don't really get to a point where you're like, okay, this is cool, everything's working. I think there were a few rare occasions where we felt like everything was under control, but those were the exceptions, not the rule. And I think ultimately you just have to zoom out and realize that entrepreneurship is hard, whether it's a small business or a large business. And crypto itself is an entrepreneurial industry. So anyone building in crypto is basically an entrepreneur within an entrepreneurial industry. And that just creates such radical volatility, uncertainty, and change. And you just have to appreciate that and let that play out.
I love that, Erik. I've actually heard an analogy that entrepreneurship is like building a house where everything is on fire and you have one hose to try and put whatever's the most important fires out at any given time.
I'm sure more than a few small businessmen would agree.
Only thing I'll add is that from my perspective, and I haven't been with ShapeShift as long as Erik and John, but I think like many of us, operate best when I'm really passionate about the project I'm working on. And ShapeShift, before I joined, was always one of my favorite crypto companies. And right when I joined was when the whole company got the news that we were implementing KYC. And that obviously was against a lot of the ethos and values of the ShapeShift team. So I was still very committed to the vision, but over the 3.5 years, as the space evolved around us, and we got to see that it was possible to do things in a more decentralized, community-owned way, that was even more in line with my values. And so while ShapeShift wasn't quite going down that path, and the rest of the industry was, I started to become a little bit less passionate about what we were working on. And kind of right about that time, we pivoted and we started going back towards decentralization. And I just want to give major kudos to Erik and John, because like we said earlier, we really believe that being a DAO is the best way for ShapeShift strategically to achieve its mission. But it's much easier said than done, especially as a centralized corporation with a board, 65 full-time employees, shareholders. So I think it's no question that if ShapeShift were to start from scratch today, we would start as a DAO. But props to them for actually figuring out how to make it happen and getting the board and the shareholders on board.
Yeah, Willy's being humble here. Willy was one of our major inspirations and guides and tutors in understanding decentralized organizations generally. So, Willy, you deserve a lot of this credit. And when you joined ShapeShift, it was definitely like maybe the worst time to join it throughout the whole history of the company. And yet you were resilient and you worked with us and you were adaptable and flexible. And ultimately you helped us figure out a way out of that mess. So thank you to you.
Yeah, and showing us just what the value of was in a lot of those new DeFi protocols and what was going on with DAOs. Willy was definitely instrumental in that. Even as we were making fun of him in the early DeFi days for farming all sorts of food tokens that we didn't understand.
Very cool, guys. I am now informed that Sarge has a couple questions, and I would like to throw it to him to ask those questions of you guys, if you don't mind. Go for it, Sarge.
Hey, first, I want to just thank you guys for taking time out of your day to come over here to the WOS community and talk with us, and being very open. I find that one of the questions that I had lined up for you has pretty much been covered, and I'm still going to frame it up for you guys just so everyone could understand that you guys have pretty much already covered this, and I have usually very good questions lined up, and I kind of dig deep to try and really rock whoever's on the AMA hot seat to see how they respond to that. So my first question was shaped as this for you guys, and again, I think you guys have done a pretty good job answering this already. So kudos for that. In 2018, ShapeShift, according to an investigation, was a service used to move more than approximately $9 million in funds for criminal activity, which in my assumption led to the KYC at ShapeShift. Would that not be the government putting in their controls that Erik had mentioned he had hoped to avoid, or enticed him into the Bitcoin world in 2011? What does ShapeShift provide that would make it a better pick than Change Ali, Change Hero, CoinSwitch, FlipMe, to name a few that would be non-KYC alternatives?
Yeah. So, yeah, you're referencing a Wall Street Journal article that came out in late Q3 or early Q4. And this was quite a learning opportunity for me. I essentially got tricked into having a number of interviews with this journalist at the Wall Street Journal who conveyed to me that he was trying to learn about Bitcoin, trying to learn about the industry and about ShapeShift. And he ended up writing this absurd hit piece that basically was just trying to showcase ShapeShift as like the center of money laundering in the world. It was a mix of complete lack of knowledge on how to read blockchains. So a lot of what they were alleging was demonstrably false, and that was kind of the beauty of blockchains, is you can prove things objectively. But it was really like it happened at a horrible time. I mean, it came out like a few months after we had already implemented KYC, and everything's just feeling miserable. And then that article comes along, and suddenly, like, every bank that we work with, a lot of other businesses that we were working with, that read the Wall Street Journal and think that everything that is written in that paper is correct. We lost bank accounts, we lost business partners, and had to deal with the fallout of that nonsense for months. Ultimately, if you actually look at the math and the numbers and the blockchain forensics that they were alleging, the rate or the proportion of money which was suspect flowing through ShapeShift was substantially less on a percentage basis than that which flows through the heavily regulated traditional financial industry and banking system. That really should have been the story, that this little startup ShapeShift that has been operating for years and hasn't done KYC still has less suspicious funds flowing through it than JP Morgan Chase and any of these banks. But of course, the Wall Street Journal didn't write about that story. And so that was really like a teaching moment for me about how tricky the media can be, and that was a pretty hard time. Your other question was, can you remind me? You kind of had a couple.
Yeah, it was just kind of a two-part, and again, it was more so based on the fact that I actually didn't know that you guys had went on KYC. So, what would ShapeShift be providing that the alternatives that do not use non-KYC, like a non-KYC alternative, as in Change Ali, Change Hero, CoinSwitch, FlipMe, what was being provided by ShapeShift that would make them a better pick, even though I was under the assumption that you guys were still KYC?
Yeah. First of all, Changelly has a dirty little secret, which is that if you use them, sometimes they will force KYC and sometimes they won't, and they won't tell you that ahead of time. So you'll send your transaction through and then they'll catch it, and they won't release it unless you KYC, and they won't be upfront with you about that.
Wow.
Yeah. So Changelly is still operating on the model that ShapeShift used to operate on a year ago, which is being a market maker to the customer. And they are kind of pseudo KYC at this point. Sometimes you have to, sometimes you don't. At this point, ShapeShift just integrates directly with decentralized exchange protocols. So that means that ShapeShift's rates are always going to be better because there's no margin added. Changelly would add a margin today and will KYC you some of the time. Further, ShapeShift has integrated Thorchain now, so we can actually do trades of native Bitcoin for native Ethereum or native Litecoin or native Bitcoin Cash, unwrapped tokens with no added fees. And Thorchain and apps that use that are really the only way to do that. So, I think a year ago, a company like Changelly was definitely a competitor of ShapeShift. But again, we're not an exchange anymore. ShapeShift doesn't try to make revenue or to build a business off trading. It just lets our users trade directly through DEXs in one interface.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and then again, like I said, you guys have pretty much covered most of that material early on without even knowing what kind of question I had lined up. So, and that kind of goes into the next thing, that I find the dollar to be extremely private. If I wanted to go buy something for $10,000 between myself and Nexus, no one knows that but me and Nexus, if I was using the dollar. And that kind of goes back to just right before you answered the first community question. Do you guys not feel that the dollar it is still private?
I think the dollar is still very private, but the question is how long will that be an option? And we're already starting to see some nation states get rid of fiat dollars, paper money, and move all towards digital currency. I think that's the scary dystopian future. Is what if we had a future where the only form of money was a nation state controlled digital currency? That is not a future that I would want to live in. So,
I mean, you're not looking any farther than China to see that taking place in real time.
Yeah.
Right. And while Bitcoin itself isn't very private, there are a number of different privacy blockchains that are popping up that do give you that privacy and the ability to transport cash across borders, which is not easy to do either.
No,
correct.
I think it's important to clarify that dollars that are cash are extremely private. Cash is very, very private. Far more anonymous and private than Bitcoin is. But dollars that are in the banking system, which are 99% of the dollars, are just digital entries in various banks. Zero privacy. I mean, that is heavily surveilled, whether you're running through banks or through PayPal or Venmo or any superficial front end for the banking system. That is completely surveilled. So it's quite a dichotomy. Like, you can't say dollars are private or not. You have to specify whether you mean dollars in cash or dollars in the banking system.
Right, absolutely.
All
which
right.
touches into my actual second question here, which I believe someone kind of tied into it further up in the list. And I think you guys have kind of basically stated your opinion on this, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to you anyway. Now that ShapeShift is on Discord, and you've seen some of the various communities, when interacting with these communities, hosting or supporting their projects, tokens, coins, NFTs, etc., how do you keep a working relationship with some of the more polarizing communities while ensuring that their views are not interwoven with ShapeShift? Do you actually lurk their community to see that their views would be consistent with ShapeShift morals, values, and goals to ensure that that's the kind of people you want supporting and using ShapeShift? Or would it be more the merrier? Would you cut ties with radical communities that are posting what some would consider alarming content?
That's an interesting question. I mean, ultimately, it's not up to us. It's not up to myself, Erik, Willy, or any of us on stage, because the whole point of going into a DAO is that those kind of questions are really up to the community. I mean, we certainly talk to other communities and help bring discussions of projects that we find interesting, but I wouldn't try to ban a project or tell someone in the community that they couldn't create a relationship with another project just because I didn't like them. If I thought they were a pure scam, I would try to warn people in the community, but that's a word that gets thrown around too often, and I would be very hesitant without knowing a lot about a project to throw that around. But I think the honest answer is like those are the types of things the DAO community has to figure out for themselves. And generally, I think in ShapeShift, we're trying to foster a community that is very open-minded to consider other projects, to consider, collaborating with other DAOs and other decentralized protocols, but at the same time critical enough to not just buy everything that's being sold and to look into what value propositions are actually being given and to have an open discussion about that with the community, but definitely not to just turn off because we don't like the way one particular community might be talking about things. And even then, it's the same problem of like a lot of these communities, it's not like there's some centralized control. You might have one person in that community that is very outspoken, that talks in such a way that doesn't even represent that community well. So you have to be careful about making assumptions because one or two people in that community talk a certain way, but maybe the rest of the community is, very great and upstanding and trying to just push forward their project. So it's not exactly a fantastic answer to the question, but the honest thing is it's just not up to us. It's up to the DAO community as a whole.
Yeah, and I'll just add that we do have rules of conduct and stuff, and ultimately these are up to the community to propose changes to. But yeah, right now basically those are, as long as you're not violating those rules of conduct, then you can say whatever you want. If you do, then there's grounds to get warned and potentially even get banned from the Discord community.
Interesting, because obviously crypto is going to attract all types from all wings of the political spectrum. So you're going to see the occasional group of radicals, and I completely agree. As a moderator of Wolves, we don't endorse any particular viewpoint. There's going to be 1,000 people with 1,000 views, and you can't judge the entire community by one person.
Yeah, and I think generally go ahead, Eric.
One of the magic elements of DAOs is that every economic actor only interacts with other people voluntarily. So if you don't like what someone's saying, you don't have to do anything with them, and you can speak out against what they're saying as well. No one is forced to interact with any other person, and it is from the confluence of which people want to work with whom that you end up getting projects that are sustainable versus projects that could just kind of fall apart and splinter.
Well said.
Right,
I was going to say too, and building on that, another one of the big benefits of a DAO is the diversity of perspectives and the wisdom of the crowd. So I think we're definitely welcoming to all types of different perspectives. ShapeShift too, I think where our values are pretty aligned with open-mindedness. We're certainly not maximalists by any means, and very much believe in a multi-chain future. And ultimately, we want any idea that any community member has for how the DAO can do things better. We want to hear it. The only things that you can't do, are just be like blatantly offensive or racist or something like that. Those are the types of things that will get you banned and are not welcome and are not constructive.
Right, and that's exactly where I was saying what I would almost say what most people would consider alarming content, right? So, but your guys' view is that the DAO would need to approach that as, hey, we need to look at this. We're not sure that they line up with our morals and values, and we're going to cut ties with that area as, possibly supporting or interacting with them. And then the DAO would have to vote and say, we're not going to interact anymore.
No, DAOs wouldn't vote on interaction. I mean, very, very clearly, there are a number of admins of the ShapeShiftDAO Discord, and there are posted transparent rules about code of conduct. And if people are violating that more than a couple times, they're going to get booted out of that Discord. Now, is that Discord the ShapeShiftDAO? That's kind of a philosophical question, right? If the gatekeepers of that Discord are out of alignment with what the community wants to do, they can go make another Discord, right? Like there's no monopoly over communication that the DAO has. Where push comes to shove is always at the token vote level. The economics are that the ShapeShiftDAO has money in its treasury, and where it deploys those resources ultimately come down to the vote of the token holders. And ultimately, if you don't like where the project's going, sell your tokens and move on to something else. And through that, you get a really mutual arrangement where people don't have to interact with people that they don't want to.
Excellent. I'd agree, 100%.
Cool.
Those are my questions. So that's all.
All right, good deal.
Again, thanks for coming out.
All right, so we're going to keep on moving with the community questions. We are approaching the hour mark. If you guys would be willing to go a little over time so we can squeeze in these community questions, I think we might appreciate that. Next up, we have Hustle. What sort of process does ShapeShift undergo when deciding which tokens and blockchains will be supported by the ShapeShift ecosystem? And how do new tokens go about applying to be supported on the platform?
Yeah, so this, in old, called centralized ShapeShift or old corporate ShapeShift, this would have been a very lengthy process of various technical and legal reviews. One of the benefits of going open source and decentralized, as we are now, is that there really is no exact process of this. And we're not arbiters of what tokens or chains are added and what is tradable. Really, it's just if we plug into a DEX and that token is tradable and the chain is supported because the engineering workstream or community members have added support for that chain via the open source interface, then it'll be available. So the real answer to this today is it's up to the community to add the technical resources, to add whatever chains or tokens or DEXs or other types of integrations that they want. And there is no process to decide, oh, we're going to add this token and not that one. We've never really wanted ShapeShift to be the arbiter of what is a good asset in the market. It's really up to the community to find the support for what it wants to see and how that works in the interface.
Yes,
this is.
Go ahead,
Willie.
I was going to say on that note too. In the past, it was on ShapeShift engineering to add any new chain or token, and with this new open source architecture, one of the really beautiful things about it is that any chain or any token can actually come add themselves, and that I think is really valuable and again can help build network effects, because right now too, it's kind of silly that every new blockchain has to build their own wallet, right? Because building a wallet is a lot of work, and building a great wallet that also supports bridging and DeFi applications and fiat and off ramps and all these new features is a shit ton of work. So wallets and blockchains can either go do that themselves right now, or I am pretty confident in the future that it'll make a lot more sense for them to just come add themselves to ShapeShift, and then they don't have to worry about supporting all these features, maintaining the interface, and again, like John was alluding to, they can also do the work to add themselves into a network like Thorchain, and then not only get wallet functionality, but also get plugged into a DEX and not have to go through any centralized listing process whatsoever.
Cool.
Is that what you're going to say, Eric?
Yeah, you guys covered it. We can move on.
All right, no problem. Harlot asks, with all of the numerous tokens out there, going around 4,500 at last count, what makes you guys believe that ShapeShift will be a success? Do you guys have a strategic plan or course of action that's going to give you guys a competitive edge in the market?
I'll take this one because I have a pretty strong view on this. I love all these different, not all of them, but there's a lot of amazing projects and innovations being built, right? And ShapeShift's role in this is not to necessarily just be one of these amazing protocols or applications being built, but rather to be the interface between the masses and this whole decentralized universe across multiple different blockchains. So Fox, I think, is a very, if we achieve that vision, and Fox is the token that powers this ecosystem, then I think Fox is very unique relative to all these different tokens that have one use case, because Fox has the ability to be the bridge, in the a utility token and a governance token for this bridge and this pathway between the masses and the entire decentralized universe.
Very cool. Also from Harlot, people believe that crypto is for the investors, for the guys with deep pockets. How does ShapeShift enable a common middle-class person to make a fortune out of it in the crypto industry?
I think the right answer here is that cryptocurrencies generally are the first time that really equalizes access and opportunity to, potentially life-changing wealth. And this started with Bitcoin 10 years ago, 11 years ago, and it continues. There are no barriers to entry other than being accountable for the decisions you make. There's a lot of garbage projects, there's a lot of scams, and no one is out there protecting you. No one owes you anything. It's on you. But there's also no gatekeepers. And you can learn about whatever you want to whatever degree of technical sophistication you can master. And you can buy $5 of a token or $5 million of a token. It doesn't matter. And you can exit whenever you wish, transfer these things all over the world without restriction. It is truly an open and equal playing field. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone is going to make money, right? Because again, you're responsible for your decisions. And if you ape into a stupid project and follow the crowd into something that is more sizzle than it is steak, you're going to get burned. And frankly, you deserve to be burned. And that process of market iteration is how wealth gets built and how great things get pulled out of the masses.
Yeah, what I would kind of put on this question is, it's not necessarily, I would love for every, middle-class person or whatnot to have the opportunity to make a ton more wealth for crypto if that's what they're going for. But it's not necessarily ShapeShift's mission to make people a bunch of money. That might be a nice byproduct. ShapeShift's mission is to make sure that everyone in the globe has access to a decentralized interface, and that so they can own and have self-custody of their own assets and make their own decisions without anyone else being able to tell them they can't make those decisions. It's up to every individual person to, do their own research, make their own investment decisions, make good decisions. ShapeShift's mission is to make sure that no one can tell you, no, you can't do that. No, you can't invest in that project because some government agency says we don't like it. No, you can't do that because that crosses some imaginary border that we don't want you to cross. The mission of ShapeShift is to make sure that everyone who wants it can be empowered to do whatever they want in the blockchain space, and that's really what's important from my perspective.
Awesome. All right, next question from Amkis. The question is, how can you explain the ShapeShift DAO and the way the voting is going to work in general?
Yeah, I'll post a link to another. I posted this earlier. I'll post a link to our governance overview. But yeah, basically, if you have a Fox token, every Fox token gives you one vote. Anyone with 100 Fox tokens can make a proposal to the DAO. And one of the cool things is that it doesn't cost any gas to vote. You can just sign a message. And yeah, basically, if there's 4 million total votes that need to happen to pass quorum. And yeah, you can see we've been a DAO for 3 months now, and already I've lost track, but I think we've had 20, maybe even more proposals that have already gone through this full governance process. So
we're on SCP 30 now.
Yeah, and even more ideas that have been discussed, and not all of them have even made it through the full governance process. But we're just getting started, and so far it's cool to see this process in action. And basically, yeah, anyone who has an idea for how to do DAO things better, if you have 100 Fox tokens, you can propose it to the DAO, and in a matter of weeks, get it ratified and funded.
That's so cool. I can't even get over how cool that is. All right. MVP 3099 asks, what does the app facilitate in addition to the other apps present for the same cause of buying Bitcoin and other tokens?
Yeah,
go ahead, Willie.
Yeah, I mean, so right now the app enables you to send, receive, buy. Selling is coming soon. You can also trade with these DEX protocols. So it's kind of like a lot of the main things that crypto users want to do. The upcoming features are kind of the next evolution of things that crypto users want to do. So enabling users to interact with more of these decentralized applications and DeFi protocols. So yeah, you can really think of the ShapeShift mobile app as, and just the ShapeShift web app as, again, the interface to all the things that a crypto user might want to do. And right now we support some of the core functionality, and what we're really excited about is adding this the new functionality and the new applications that are now being created at an astounding pace.
Absolutely. Ooh, here's a great one. Mr. V asks, is there anything you guys want to go into that presumably you didn't already cover with regards to the origins of your KYC, the pressure you received, and the timeline you went through on being a corporation that requires KYC to a DAO that doesn't?
Nothing really that we didn't cover already. I mean, there are things that we just cannot talk about, which totally sucks, and I hope someday that they can come out in a book or something.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, fundamentally, we realized that the only legal way to not require KYC is to not provide those services which are regulated in the first place. And so that meant we could not be trading with customers anymore. It meant we could not be an exchange. It meant we could not, be a counterparty or an intermediary of any kind. And so we just acknowledged that and stopped that service, and thus the rules don't apply because we're not offering those services anymore. And it's kind of as simple as that. But it was a long maze of legal analysis and review and a lot of soul searching to help us figure that point out. So yeah, nothing more on that. I've certainly talked about this issue on a lot of podcasts in the past, and fundamentally, I believe that people have a right to privacy. I don't know why that's I don't know why that's an extreme position.
You would think
certainly in the U.S., it's enshrined in the Fourth Amendment, even.
Oh, yeah.
And just as when someone draws the shades on their window, you shouldn't assume that they want privacy because they're being bad. People just have the right to privacy, and you don't need to justify that any more than that. And that should apply to thoughts, to speech, and to money. Money is no more dangerous than ideas, and if you can have privacy in your ideas, you should be able to have privacy in your money.
Amen. Amen, brother. That's what a great and articulate way to put that, sir. I certainly look and hope forward to the time when you get to tell us the juicy stuff, and I hope you'll come back years from now with lots of unredacted documents.
Yeah, we will see.
All right. Tumalet asks, how do you measure in a quantitative or even qualitative way what each workforce in the DAO would provide in terms of utility for the cost of financing the work groups? Do you guys have a system that, for example, might cut funding for a project if they're ineffective or not making good enough progress?
Yeah, we do. It's a great question. And if you guys, I posted that diagram of our organizational structure earlier. I'll post it again. As you can see there, basically, Fox token holders have ultimate control. So very similar to like oops, I just accidentally attached a message to it. I posted that diagram, and very similar to a board, how the board would have the ability to ultimately control a company. The Fox token holders are kind of like the board of the DAO, and they're able to approve budgets for these work streams. And then if the work stream is not behaving as proposed, then token holders have the ability to either appoint a new work stream leader, or in the extreme event, just even defund the work stream. So token holders both have that ability, but they also don't have the responsibility to have to approve every single expenditure. So as long as the work stream is acting, in the interest of the DAO and in alignment with the proposal they made to the community, then the token holders actually don't have to vote on every single expenditure, which gives us both like a nice balance of being able to move quickly and efficiently, while still having token holders maintain complete control at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'll just add on that these are all things that the DAO is trying to figure out. It's not like the DAO has 100% of all of these answers, but that ultimately any of these work streams, anything that gets a budget, anything that is funded, has to answer to the token holders ultimately. So, I as a singular token holder cannot decide that particular group or that particular initiative is not contributing enough value, but I can certainly vote with my tokens, either when it comes time to renew their funding or even ahead of that, if I want to, that they're not contributing, and try to get others to my side and basically take it away. So the DAO and the token holders have full control to make those decisions as they see fit.
I guess that would lead me to ask, if you don't mind, Are there any protocols within the DAO to deal with whale manipulation? Like a rich guy who comes in and just has enough sats to buy up all the Fox tokens?
Well, let's imagine that scenario. Go ahead, Eric.
If any whale wants to come in and buy up all the Fox tokens, I mean, everyone with Fox tokens benefits. So I don't see that as a problem.
Cool.
The equalizer here is that each token is a vote, and people can be as involved or not as they want to be with those votes. So it doesn't mean that everyone is equal, right? Because obviously someone with 1 million tokens is going to outvote someone with 10, but anyone with tokens is the same pro rata as anyone else, regardless of who they are, their background, what country they live in, their gender, their race. All these kind of things are completely indifferent when you get down to the nitty gritty of token voting.
Yep.
And I think it really provides like a certain clarity and economic honesty, washing away lots of biases that might be present in a normal context.
Excellent.
Perfectly said. Yeah.
I'll just add on to that. I think Eric's answer was really good. It's just, ultimately, I think that there's, you have to look at our decentralization announcement where we talk about all the allocations, but there's plenty of tokens out there for people who want to vote against a whale to coordinate and do so. I think there's enough held by the community. There's enough held by all sorts of various people that they can be outvoted as long as they don't sell all their tokens off. So I do think that this is one of those, ultimately experiments with DAOs, but the economic incentives should work in such a way that, if a whale wants to buy up a bunch and do a vote, he's only going to do so at an increasingly higher cost and delivering value to everyone in the community. So I don't think that would even really be a successful attack, quote unquote. If anything, it might just add a bunch of value into the community and get more people interested in buying up votes to oppose them. And that's hopefully something that the economic game theory would take care of itself.
Right, and it's all voluntary. If like in that hypothetical situation, if a whale were to do that, there is a minimum 3-day period between when a proposal can be posted and when it gets executed, and even before that, there's a 5-day ideation period. So at any point in that, if a smaller token holder did not agree, they could also just voluntarily exit and actually do so at a higher price because this whale has come in and bought up so many Fox tokens.
Or I guess, as you guys said, rally against the whale. That's really cool. What a cool system. Excellent. Arags asks, do you guys have any insight into changes in the NFT world or views on the repercussions of Coinbase's NFT platform taking shape?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've been paying attention to NFTs like everyone else over this last year, and it's obviously one of the new hot things that's going on in crypto. I think a lot of this is quite speculative, obviously, right now, and it's still being built. But I do think NFTs are an important innovation that is going to add all sorts of value and bring all sorts of new people into the space. It's already done that through this year. So I don't think they're going away. I don't know if the current asset prices of NFTs will last in the near future, but I don't think that these are assets that are going to all go to zero like any other, subjective assets. A bunch of them will, maybe 95% of them, but some of them will be hugely valuable over time. ShapeShift, we actually just announced this yesterday. We hold some historic NFTs ourselves just because of how active we've been in the community over a long period of time. So, we have some of those ourselves. We're looking at that. We have a lot of community members that are interested to have more NFT support in the ShapeShift interface itself. I'm sure that will probably happen at some point. We have community members creating NFTs for the DAO or on behalf of the DAO or for community members. That's all stuff that we're looking at. So I think we're very much embracing the NFT movement while at the same time realizing that, you might be in a little bit of a bubble around NFT asset prices at the moment.
Very cool. All right. Master Halo 40 asks, what is the main objective that ShapeShift has in the short term so that more people will benefit from the project, and also the immediate future in which developments are being worked on? I believe this user is looking for more options where users can be rewarded for participating and helping to participate, like I guess referrals may be.
Yeah, well, right now there is a referral program live with ShapeShift, and a lot of you just downloaded the app, so you can refer friends and earn some Fox tokens that way. Also, if you have any other ideas for other reward programs, those are, anyone can propose those. But yeah, I mean, right now the best way I would say is to come get involved with the DAO, come join the ShapeShift Discord, and there's a growing number of opportunities to contribute. And what I always say is that if you're contributing meaningfully to a DAO and the DAO is not rewarding you, then the DAO is doing something wrong. So again, I think it's ultimately up to the community, but it's in Fox token holders' best interest to approve proposals and approve initiatives that will benefit the DAO and the ecosystem. So if you have an idea for how to do that, and there's already some available opportunities for how to do that in the Discord, then that is probably one of the best ways to come get involved and earn some Fox tokens.
Cool. Moving right along, because I'm trying to get through these questions. The community asked a lot of great questions. They always do, goodness. Dope asks, what type of rewards and or privileges are going to be available for ShapeShift token holders? Presumably anything we haven't mentioned besides voting in the DAO.
This is really interesting. I'll post a link to, we have, there's quite a few Fox benefits right now. You can earn Fox when you trade. You can use Fox you can get Fox reimbursements on your gas cost on trades based on how much Fox you hold. You can, if you hold Fox, whenever a trade happens, a random user wins USDC. So we have a history of creating some pretty cool utility around the Fox token. But these were all utilities that were kind of managed by Centralized ShapeShift. And Centralized ShapeShift is, as you guys have heard, is going away. So right now we're in the process actually of collaborating with the community on brainstorming what the future of these reward programs could look like. And it'll be really interesting to see. Basically, any future of Fox rewards will be decided and implemented by the community. No longer up to Erik, John, myself, or anyone else at any other former ShapeShift employees. I'll post some notes too for one example of what this future decentralized reward program might look like. But ultimately, again, it's all up to the community.
Sweet. All right, my fellow moderator, Prazen, asks, is there any plan to participate in worldwide related blockchain conferences, crypto conferences, events? If so, will you tell us when and where?
I'll be in Lisbon next couple weeks. If anyone's out there, feel free to DM. I'd love to hang. John, you're going up Lisbon in November, right?
2 weeks after you do for the Cosmos conference. So we'll both be there over 2 or 3 week period of time.
Oh, Atom tokens. Atoms are so cool. Big fan of Atom staking.
Yeah, and I think we did recently. We had a party during MCon. That one was not paid for by the DAO, but because the DAO's kind of the marketing workstream was still in the process of getting established and funded themselves. But I am very curious to see some of the first proposals for like the DAO to sponsor a concert or sponsor a conference or host an event. It's the timing hasn't quite lined up yet, but I'm sure we'll see that happen soon.
Speaking of DAO proposals and hype, Pay the Toll asks, are there any governmental DAO proposals that you guys are particularly excited about?
Governmental?
Yeah, the government of the DAO. Are there any proposals coming through that you guys are super excited about?
Yeah, I'm excited for most of the proposals that come through. I think there's a lot of cool ideas coming through. Anything from, the DAO creating its own merch store that brings back revenue. The DAO recently voted to basically fund the operation and put up its own Cosmos validator, for example, back on the subject of atoms. And a portion of the revenues of that validator are going to be returned to the DAO treasury, a large portion of them. There's all sorts of things going on. Like we just launched these, other various programs in cooperation with other DAOs that are happening. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. I don't know if there's one that stands out that I'm like, that's the one, or that's the one I think is so cool. But I really just love seeing the open, active process of all these various proposals about all sorts of different things going through DAO governance right now. And it's the process itself is what's getting me super excited.
Oh, it's certainly exciting. Florence asks, Are there going to be any more options with regard to other currencies for pool or snapshot in the future?
Can you clarify that question?
I can try to. I believe they're referring to the mining pools, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. So, great question. Again, I'll probably sound like a broken record, but all this stuff is up to the community so far, or even other communities. So right now, there's a farming program live. You can get, I think it's like around 200% APR for in Fox rewards for depositing Fox and ETH liquidity on mainnet. There's also a program on Polygon on SushiSwap, so you can deposit Fox and wrapped ETH, and you can earn both Sushi and Matic tokens. Also, Bancor, you can deposit Fox single-sided to Bancor and earn yield from trade fees there. Olympus Bonds just launched this past week, where you can trade your Fox and ETH liquidity pool tokens for Fox that unlocks over a 7-day period. And again, we are just getting started, so these are all things that have been proposed by the community or by other communities. And if I definitely think that there's interest in, again, if it makes sense for Fox token holders to incentivize liquidity on a certain chain or pool, then anyone can make that proposal. We are seeing, though, however, I will say, a growing trend just in the broader space of kind of a new evolution beyond liquidity mining. Liquidity mining has been proven to be a very effective way for DAOs to both incentivize liquidity and distribute their governance tokens to community members. But it was kind of just the first experiment there. And so things like these Olympus Pro bonds, things like tokamak reactors, all of these new innovations and kind of what's being dubbed as liquidity mining 2.0. These are all super interesting things that the DAO is watching very closely, and some of which is already considering.
Excellent. Another question from Prazen. In what ways does the ShapeShift Keep Key stand out from other cold wallets?
Yeah, I mean, so we ShapeShift acquired Keep Key back in 2017, and it's certainly a big part of the ShapeShift platform. I would say that one of the ways it stands out is honestly just its big, beautiful screen. It's one of the only hardware wallets where you can actually see full Ethereum addresses, what you're actually signing, get much more clear, obvious instructions about what is actually happening and the risks you might be taking versus scrolling through it on a tiny nano screen and things like that. A lot of people who like them just really like the form factor. They like that big screen and how much information can actually be displayed. That's certainly one of the things that I hear a lot from people who use Keep Keys and that I personally love about it.
Yeah, also you don't have to install and uninstall apps on a Keep Key. So anyone who's used Ledger, that's this obnoxious thing where,
yes,
depending on how many coins you have, you can only have certain apps on the device at certain times. And even if you can get all the apps on that you want, you have to switch between them on the hardware level before you can use them. And so it's just not ideal. The Keep Key has larger chips, and that just allows all the chains that are supported to be within the same app. Essentially, there's no concept of apps on a Keep Key. They just all work, and the interaction is all with the UI layer and in the ShapeShift platform.
Very cool. I might need to get me one of those, you guys, pretty soon here.
Yeah. Also, they are very inexpensive. So it's like the nicest physical hardware device, but it's also, John, do you know, right now it's $25 or something that we sell these for? So it's a great deal.
Probably, you can certainly get one that cheap with a discount code. I don't know if they're that cheap retail. You might know better than me, Willie.
Oh, they're $50 retail, but which does make it one of the cheapest hardware wallets. And part of the reason there is that we're not really interested in making a ton of money off these Keep Keys as much as we are in getting these hardware wallets into the hands of crypto users, and also it's just a great way for us to shapeshift interface. That's another cool thing about the Keep Key, is that the best way to use the Keep Key is with the shapeshift interface. So getting Keep Keys into more hands of crypto users means more users for Shapeshift. So compared to Ledger or Trezor, where their main source of revenue is just selling hardware, Shapeshift, we have this other software application, and just acquiring users is valuable in and of itself.
Absolutely.
But yeah, right now, everyone who's listening, there's a code. Maybe we can repost that code, but there's a code for coupon code for a $20 keep key that will be live for another like 23 hours.
Yes, and I will probably be taking advantage of that myself. I encourage everyone here listening to take advantage of that one. Okay, next question. This one should be coming from, yep, there it is, Hustle. I've noticed some reviews on your all's mobile app haven't been the greatest with regard to freezing, lagging, app crashes. As a developer myself, I understand it takes time to improve these things. What kinds of steps have you guys taken to remedy the performance issues relating to your mobile app?
Yeah, well, I think probably the biggest step is this new direction in decentralization. So I think we've learned a lot over the past 7 years of developing ShapeShift and all these products. And we've been pioneers in developing it. So since we've started building the mobile app, there's been a lot of innovations. And I think the new architecture that the engineers are actively focused on for the open source web app basically is designed to address a lot of these pain points and to not have any dependency really on ShapeShift's backend whatsoever, which is where the source of a lot of the slowness comes from. Basically, the new ShapeShift that the engineers are focused on does not have any dependency on any centralized ShapeShift servers or any centralized servers. And by doing that, it's basically enabling users to communicate directly with node providers, or eventually even be able to plug in their own node and cut out that extra server middleman. I think the hope is that we'll be able to have a much more performant app that once we remove ShapeShift's servers from the equation.
Absolutely right. I love hearing this. This is just the coolest shit ever. All right. Question from Metamorphosis. Why can't users load ShapeShift on both iOS and Android from an Iranian IP address, especially considering similar apps like Binance and CoinEx can be used within Iran?
Yeah, I'll take that. So in the US, there's something called OFAC, which is yet another government agency that basically tries to impose political views on entire nations of people. And what it means is that US businesses are not permitted to offer services to certain jurisdictions, the entire nation of Iran being one of them. Iran is like the, 6th or 7th most populous country in the world.
Yes.
99% of the people there are good people, but we are prevented by the politicians in the United States from offering services.
Would you say we are prevented, Eric, or formerly we were prevented, but will the new open source ShapeShift be prevented?
Yeah, centralized ShapeShift is prevented. The degree to which a DAO can do that is an interesting and open question, and I don't have a good answer for it.
Well, hey, that's a question I guess the DAO and the governments are going to have to iron out, isn't it?
Yeah, and they might not agree on the answer.
No, they almost certainly will not, but
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, this is certainly, again, one of the benefits of decentralization is the community makes those decisions, not a bunch of company, shareholders and lawyers. So we'll just have to see what happens there and how the DAO deals with those things over time.
It really changes the context for the better, in my opinion. All right. Next question from Fish. Biggest regrets or problems the team have had while creating ShapeShift? Was there anything you guys wish you could have done differently over the years?
Yeah, the first major mistake that we made, and this started, even back in the very beginning, 2015-16 timeframe, is that we let ourselves get distracted on sort of ancillary products and services before the core of ShapeShift had really caught on and become dominant. And the reason for this is you look out into the crypto world and it's really hard to not see a million amazing opportunities, right? It's just this like greenfield world, so many obvious things that could be done that would build value for people. And so as ShapeShift had its exchange built, we started building other things and spent a lot of time and resources and our own focus on those things prematurely. There's companies like Amazon that do everything in the world, but they didn't try to do everything in the world until they had completely dominated at least one vertical. And I think that's a really important lesson for business generally. So that focus to the exclusion of other opportunities that might be valuable is really important.
Very cool. All right. Ranger asks, do you guys have any plans to list on Binance or other similar exchanges soon?
Not up to us.
Of course, that's right. It's up to the DAO, isn't it?
No, it's up to Binance.
Oh, because they're all centralized and weird.
Yeah,
that's right.
we don't yet control Binance, so that's really up to them. But yeah, if you're a
Fingers
customer of
crossed.
Binance, send them an email and let them know your desires.
Fingers crossed. I would love to see Fox DAO and ShapeShift DAO control finance personally, but that's just me.
Well, hopefully, maybe we'll get there over time.
All right. Collie Buds asks, what pros and cons would you guys list for someone who's considering to use Portis versus their MetaMask account?
Yeah, I think Portis is probably the biggest competitor to MetaMask. They're similar in the sense that they're both Web3 wallets, so they both enable you to, connect to different dApps and utilize different dApps. Some big differences between Portis is that it also supports Bitcoin, and it's also just a lot easier. MetaMask, in order to get started, requires that you back up your seed phrase and stuff, which to a brand new user who has never used crypto, that alone is just a big hurdle and barrier and learning experience. And the unique thing about Portis is that it enables new users to create a wallet with just an email and password. Still non-custodial, they can back up their seed phrase. Portis never sees their seed phrase; they just see the hash of their encrypted email and password, which can be used to decrypt Portis sees the encrypted seed phrase, which can be decrypted by the user's email and password. So that's kind of the main differences. Very similar, but Portis is kind of just an easier user experience and does not require backing up that seed phrase to get started. And lately, Portis is more focused on being the best NFT wallet, which I think is definitely something that MetaMask is probably not going to win and not focused on. And currently, like, a good example of that, we did a NFT drop with Blau in Miami at a club at 2 a.m, and there were 100 NFTs, and within 4 minutes, all 100 NFTs were claimed. And this is in the middle of a club with most of these people who probably did not have crypto wallets already. And I think if we had done that with MetaMask, it would have taken much longer for people to be able to claim all those NFTs.
Man, that must have been something, giving out that many NFTs in just a nightclub.
It was sweet. I got one. I think it's worth like $5,000, but poor John was too slow.
Yeah. I knew it was coming, and I still didn't get one.
We have an emoji around here for that.
I unfortunately have to leave.
Thank you so much, Erik, for your time. I wanted to get to more questions, but we're getting near the end, obviously. Would the three of you please do us the honor of selecting your favorite questions, excluding my initial set, and that way we can go ahead and choose our winners, because Erik's got to run.
Yeah, you want us to choose these live, like right now?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. This puts on the pressure and makes it more fun for the audience. Everybody's in suspense. Oh, did I win?
Oh, man.
Oh, did I win? Am I going to win? He read my question. Am I going to win? And of course, to everyone whose question I didn't get to you, I sincerely apologize. I always try as hard as I can to squeeze as many of these in, but when we're dealing with very important people who are pressed for time, I can't always get you in. So if I missed you, I apologize sincerely.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the wording was, but I think my favorite one was actually the one asking about, basically if we regretted anything, basically how hard it was. That
would be fish.
Yeah, building a company and everything that went into that, and building ShapeShift. That was a great one.
I was going to suggest that one too.
That's why I took it first.
Oh, yep. You can't have that one. We need 2 more winners, people.
Is there a list of these that are
Absolutely.
in the,
You may, in your Discords, on the top right-hand side, there's a little push pin icon. If you will click that and scroll through, you can even choose questions I didn't get to if you would like. They are completely open for your choosing. Any of the users' questions who were pinned.
I kind of like the question about how keep key stands out.
Ah.
We don't have to go with that, but that was a good one.
It's up to you guys. That was a great question.
That was a good one. What comes after ShapeShift completes its DAO journey? What pros and cons?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
my favorite is the how do you measure in a quantitative or qualitative way what each workforce of a DAO provides in utility. I like that question because it's just very practical, right? Like everyone's throwing around this DAO term and we're all going to decentralize everything and it's very utopian. But like from the business world, I think there's actual serious advantage in structuring an organization as a DAO. And so that question really gets to the heart of it, which is like, how do you maintain accountability among the participants of the DAO? So that's where my vote goes.
Excellent.
That was
Good
from
choice.
Tumalet.
Tumalet is our
Tumalet, if they're French.
Indeed. They are our second winner. All right, that means we have one more winner to choose, gentlemen.
All right. I will go with Leo Eng. Question: how do you plan for payments for workers and experts that would provide services to update anything and everything about ShapeShift? Glad that question was asked and answered.
I agree. All right, excellent. That is our 3 winners. You guys will receive your crypto airdrops, presumably via tip.cc. Excellent. Thank you, everybody, so very much for joining us for this show. This has been a presentation of the Wolves of Alt Street. I want to thank Sarge, cybenz, Erik, Willie, and John from Team ShapeShift for joining us for this incredible conversation. I am humbled to have been your host. My name is Nexus. Thank you all so very much. I hope you will join us again next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Thanks again, guys.
Thanks so much. Everybody, have a lovely day. And watch that Bitcoin price because we're rocking and rolling.